ADHD is not a matter of knowing what to do. It's a matter of getting it done. It's different for all of us in some sense. There's some commonalities to it for sure. But the fact is, for some people, it's about money. Other people, it's emotional, collateral damage in their relationships. There's, lost job opportunities, which aren't always about money. Sometimes you have a mission and purpose you want to accomplish in life, and then you don't get that application in for whatever. So it's, as we talked about the first time, it's way more complex than money. I think it's something that each of us needs to get in touch with, because in order to solve a problem, we want to understand the problem enough to know what it is, and then we shift over to thinking of solutions. And if you don't know what the problem is, then how are you going to come up with solutions to it? So clearly, we're not just talking about late fees. We're talking about lost opportunities and relationship implosions and all those things. Lost in confidence in ourselves, that might actually be the most damaging thing. We can repair other relationships, or we can find other relationships, but when we lose confidence and lose, our own self-compassion and self-esteem, then that's really hard to recover from. I mean, you're the foundation. We talk about centering things. We need to center ourselves in our lives. We are the center. We're the common denominator of all of it. Whatever damage, self-esteem, whatever it is, whenever someone wants our help, we quickly drop what is helping us in our lives and we go help them, and without a lot of due thought as to what our consequences might be. I'm not saying we shouldn't be helpful to people, but I think sometimes we need to think that through and say, what's our true motivation here? Is my motivation to help them, or do I just feel so bad about who I am that I have to go do something like that to make myself feel better? We have to identify what it is. And for a lot of times, we're helping someone else because we really don't want to think about our own stuff, which might be good in a way, but if our own stuff is collapsing, then maybe we need to be paying attention to it. And whether we're talking about money or relationships or jobs, it all comes down to boundaries, setting those boundaries. We train people how to treat us. That comes under that category. We really need to evaluate why we feel this need to say yes. It's not always just that we want to be helpful. Maybe we're seeking approval. There's a lot of different things that happen there. If we want adult-to-adult relationships, we have to set adult-to-adult relationships up. And it does happen in the ADHD world where we end up in parent-child relationships with our significant others sometimes because they get exasperated and, oh, I'll do it. And something else comes along, I'll do it. And pretty soon, we're not carrying our weight. And I think we have to own that. All right. So I want to talk about behavioral change. From the behavioral change is really, really hard. And one reason it's hard is because our perception is, our thought is that it should be easy. So when it's hard, we're kind of blindsided. So, well, how hard can that be? The problem is behavior change is tied into everything else in our life. I think of it like of the matrix of your life, all the forces acting upon you, all the people the thought patterns that you have, all these different things. In a sense, they're all conspiring to keep you right where you are. You, as Jim Rohn says, we're the sum total of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So if you want to change your behavior, you probably are going to find yourself changing your social environment at the same time. Whether we like it or not, wherever we are is usually a state of equilibrium. In order to change, we can white knuckle it and use self-discipline to go to the gym every 3 days a week. And we can do that. If we start on January, we can do that till February 15th or the end of March, maybe, if you're really disciplined, but it will fall apart and you will snap back kind of like a rubber band to your older behaviors. So it's really important to realize that behavior change is much harder than it looks because it's tied into everything else in our lives. Not just the things we can see either. Anxieties and all kinds of things pop up emotionally that happen. We get depressed and then that changes our behavior in a negative kind of way. So it all kind of conspires to keep us right where we are. The fact is that we can do something about it too. We often think in terms of the problem that we have, but we're usually just looking at the symptoms. Late fees, missed opportunities, penalties. Those are the symptoms of a deeper rooted problem that we have. I like to think of it as a life in a way. It's like a cascade of events and forces. So initially, let's think about a cascade of dominoes, right? I'm going to make a decision because of the domino that was just before that told me something, and the one before that and before that and before that. So we are the same way. So these changes are at least one-dimensional, like a cascade, but they're two-dimensional, if not three-dimensional, and four if you throw in the time factor, because a lot of times these things cement themselves over a period of time, these behaviors. And if you're in a state of equilibrium and you try to force yourself out, something else is going to be forcing you back, right? And I'm going to give you a visual on that in just a minute. But we cannot simply just will ourselves to change. It just can't be done. I know lots of people talk about having more self-discipline. I will not do it. You can make changes temporarily and white knuckle it, but you will not be happy, and things will push you back to where you were before. And you might even be in worse shape. At the very least, time has gone by while you didn't solve the problem. So we really want to address it. One of the biggest issues I see, a lot of us, we heard about 10,000 negative comments by the time we were in 5th grade or something, right? And we've gotten in all kinds of trouble. And, you know, it depends on what type of ADHD you had, but we've had a lot of difficulties. So what we've done is associated the character assassinating judgments of well-meaning people. The people that meant us harm, we brush that off, but the well-meaning people, like our school teachers and our parents, we don't brush it off. It goes right under the radar and gets to us. So we absorb these things. Well, you're really smart. You did it yesterday. You must be lazy today, right? There's some reason for the inconsistency, and it must be a character-based issue. You know, lazy, irresponsible, all these different judgments that we've got, and we've internalized them now. No one's saying it to us anymore, but we're saying it to ourselves. Every time we make a slip up, we come up with all this negative self-talk. Not only is the self-talk damaging, but it becomes the problem as well. Because while you're thinking it's character-based, and if I just worked harder, all these problems would go away because I have a character problem. I just have to quit being lazy. I have to get more discipline, whatever it happens to be. While you're beating yourself up and thinking that's the problem, you're not addressing the real problem, which is an executive function deficit, which can be addressed with medication and therapy and a changed lifestyle, environment, all those kind of things. So as long as you're trying to address this as a character issue, and most of us do, it's really hard to change because you're not even addressing the real problem, which is why I think the number one thing you can be doing for your financial life, your business life, your personal life, is go get fully diagnosed and know what you're dealing with and believe what you're dealing with. Until you believe it, you will not address it. You will replay the old tapes that you're irresponsible in one way or another. The people we surround ourselves with, I think it's really important. We talked about it a little bit earlier. We teach people, we train people how to treat us, and it goes the other way around. We don't change people consciously, but when you're thinking in terms of changing your behavior rather than someone else's behavior, now you have an internal locus of control. And in essence, you change. You don't change them. But what will happen is a bidirectional effect. When you change, they will begin to change too, because they are the sum total of the people they spend the most time with, just like you are. And when you change, hopefully for the better, now you become a better role model for them, and they begin to change as well. The ones that can't change or won't change, they will fade out of your life, right? And other people will show up to take their place. It's just nature, right? ADHD can't be an excuse. We just have to understand that it's an explanation, and now we have a chance to do something about it.